this is called To Hell and Back. It's from my Land of Trembling Earth album, and it's about the TV. That's T-E-E-V-W-E. That TV right there, and this social media, iPhone, whatever mediums are nowadays, all of the above, all equate to the same thing. It's the TV. That little box, and the whole premise that you are not to question the gospel when it comes out of that box, or that box there. But anyway, I'll start this back in the 70s when I was coming up, and my dad would incessantly watch the news. Every day at 6 o'clock, he would watch the local news and then the national news, which back in those days it was with Walter Cronkite. And most of it back then was more along the lines of this is the news, make of it what you will, and not so much like it is nowadays where it's, thou shalt not question the gospel when it comes to that little box right there, or this little box right here. Now, into the 80s and 90s is when he started watching, and this isn't an isolated incident. I'm sure many of you have experienced the same with your parents and other people. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. Maybe you're one of these people, but noon, 6 and 11, and then it became with CNN, Fox News, and this type of cable news. It become 24-hour news. So they're just loading that brain up, loading that shit up 24/7. To me, it was always different flavors of the same bullshit. I would go into my parents' house, and my dad would have, 3 different TVs on in 3 different rooms, and all broadcasting that CNN, Fox, and whatever the brain douche, he was subscribed to at the time. And I would go over there, and I would cut off 2 of them, and they wouldn't even notice, so. And all that shit does, man, it just puts you in conflict with yourself, because one day they're telling you, if you want to, take care of this ailment, shove a green pine cone up your ass. And the next day they'll say, no, don't do that, And then the next day after that is, shove a coat hanger up your ass for whatever ailment you have. And then the next day after that is, no, don't do that, tell you something different. And it just like, I never listened to it anyway. But anyway, unless they're telling me it's raining somewhere, or there's a hurricane coming, or an earthquake in wherever, or a plane crash, or whatever, it's okay. Anyway, back on point here. And when they start stretching reality too much, man, and their ratings start slipping, they suddenly have a realignment and become objective to pull the audience back in. And then once they get everybody back in, they just reintroduce the propaganda, because that's what it is. It's a propaganda machine, or at least it's partially or proportionately used for that. Probably not by accident. Anyway, I never really watched the news. I was kind of exposed to it, but I just it was always like wacky to me, like you're being talked to by androids or something. I don't know. In the 1990s, I really consciously just made sure I wasn't exposed to it. If I had to walk to another room, or et cetera, et cetera. Now, I like to watch movies and stuff, and VH1 and documentaries and stuff. I just didn't care to watch that, mantra of the news where everything is bad. And then in the 2000s, when I moved out here in the woods, I completely stopped watching TV for quite a number of years. Nowadays, it's just like everywhere. You go in the airport, at the gas pump, man, they're pumping that damn news into your head, blasting me all the time, yeah. Which, incidentally, at the gas pump, the second button down on the right is a mute button on a lot of them. And if the second button down doesn't work, one of the other ones, I think on the right, will usually mute it. But yeah, in large, there's almost no escaping it, man. You can't go to a restaurant or anything. It's been like that for a number of years, man. But anyway, you also kind of got to become your own. You got to be your own investigative reporter or journalist or whatever nowadays. Because if you're just taking what they're giving you, you're caught up in it. Especially if you're watching it on a daily basis and just taking that shit in, man. Just filling your brain up, and you're not staying informed. You're being programmed. That's what I call it. Programming is brought to you by, anyway, mostly anyway. Always exceptions to the rule and everything. But the way I kind of really got myself of it out, and how, I feel it, just immersing yourself in nature does wonders for resetting your brain, and and then when you do that and finally get grounded out again, where you're not having all these crazy, worrisome, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, because the birds are chirping, and usually the animals are first to react to things. And if they're not doing anything, if they're just walking around, tweeting and whatnot, chances are everything's going to be pretty good. But once you do, I think that's where saying, back in the 60s, tune in and drop out come from, getting out of that hypnotic mantra of the TV, And then when you do step back into it and, experience the news again or whatever, man, you'll be laughing at it for how unnatural and how just ridiculous it is, I was kind of already laughing at it before I even really deprogrammed myself, so to speak. But I do remember one incident, though, stepping into the back of the bus, and somebody had left that Fox News or CNN on, and they had a thing about a story where they were blowing a shit out of some country over in the Middle East or somewhere, and the headline was, "We're bombing for peace," and there's a few who just died laughing at the ridiculousness of it, I don't think they interviewed anybody they were dropping the bombs on to get their perspective, but which brings me to this next point, when it's like this critical thinking thing, and a lot of people boast about critical thinking skills and stuff like that, but often what's left out of it is the most important component in critical thinking, and that is turning your critical thinking on yourself and making sure your own brain and your own self is not full of shit. There's always that. So, I just hear a lot of people, they boast about their critical thinking that they've learned in college and whatnot, and that's great and everything, but being able to decipher between A, B, D, and C, A, B, C, and D, or D and C, is one thing, but being able to turn it in on yourself and, analyze yourself and see where your self is at is, I think, a way more important component in that. And my final point here before I actually stop running my mouth and play the song is there's also another important thing, especially in how things are today, is you got to discern between who's interested in actually finding truth or just the brass tacks of what's going on, and who's in competition for their team, because there are big differences. Me personally, I don't care about teams. I'm just interested in knowing, just what's going on, You might have to do some digging around to really kind of get a close idea of it, or to step back away from it and get a bird's eye view. So I think that's what all that, I don't think this country is necessarily that divided as much as it is. People are just, they're in competition for their teams. I personally think they should get rid of all political parties and just let people go run on their individual merit, get money out of politics, but that will probably never happen because there's too many people got too much invested in it. So, and on that note, I want to get to playing the song. It's called To Hell and Back, and it's about tuning in and dropping out, I guess, or realizing it's time to tune in and drop out. But anyway, it goes like this. It just doesn't feel right. By the second guess, you're back to the first one. Third time around, it's even more confused. Now it's still the wrong way you go. To hell and back again, with the same broken record playing. They're gonna spinning out the lines, blasting me all the time. Yeah. One more time, but nothing ever seemed right. Only drags you down further from your sunlight. Anywhere you go, you don't know where to go. Only one way you know. To hell and back again, with the same broken record play. I'm gonna spinning out the line, blasting me all the time. Yeah, and the songs aren't even good. It's just straight out of Hollywood, yeah. Around and round it goes. You gotta stop, wait, recompose, yeah. Dun 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 I've been to hell and back again so many times I don't know when, but I'm in it till the end, through the fire and through the pan. Yeah, it's a long, long way to go, a face falling down the road. Yeah, to hell and back again, with the same broken record playing. I said la na na na, la da da na na, la da da na, la da da na 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 na, da 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 da, la da da da, la da da da, la da da da, I da na da 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 da. Okay, that's it. Hell and back. Turn that damn TV off and get a life. We'll see y'all. Have a good one. Bye.